Hey folks, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. In a short bit, after my little open here, I'm going to bring on my friend and work partner. He's a fellow worker. Enjoy the guy a lot, Adam Dvorin. He's a media director and a high-level consumer and creator of content and a sports lover and pop culture. Really good discussion had with him about the Tiger Woods drama, sports, and how great Sunday, April 14th was from just a pure media standpoint, and sports and pop culture in particularly, starting with the Tiger Woods final day of the Masters run, which was moved up to 9 a.m. because of the fact that there was a tornado or storm approach coming that was going to be later in the afternoon. So starting that at 9 was phenomenal, and then leading right up through the day, playoff basketball, playoff hockey. The Mets were the Sunday night baseball game against the Braves, starting at 7 on ESPN, and then right into the season premiere of the final season of Game of Thrones, which I love. Of course, there were even more shows. Barry, which I'm loving. I love this show, Barry. It's just such an interesting show. It's only a half-hour show, which has its positives, easier to get through. And the content is tight and well woven together. Black comedy, drama, just a tremendous show. Almost has feelings of Breaking Bad in that sense, where you have the drama and the high comedy and the dark comedy. And I always thought the star of that show is Bill Hader. And I always thought when I saw the previews for that show that it was almost a spoof of Dexter, because Bill Hader looks a lot like if you were to do Bill Hader pretending to be Dexter on Saturday Night Live. You know, he actually looks a lot like a caricatured Dexter. So I was a little unsure what the show was, and it really does pay off to watch it. It's a very good show. It's on HBO. So you had a Barry episode last night, not the season premiere. I think it was the third episode of season 2. And you also had Billions last night on Showtime, which I did not see. I'll have to catch up. I am all caught up through last night's episode, but man, what a day of content and what a day of payoffs. Just a tremendous day. Really enjoyed it, and I talk about that with Adam. We delve into that. We talk about the Philly scene as well, with the Brooklyn Nets playing the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoff, in the NBA playoffs, first round. Sixers 3 seed, Nets 6 seed. And actually, the Mets are in Philadelphia as well, right across the parking lot from there, starting tonight, Monday, April 15th, tax day, of course. So a lot of action. Great time of year for television. And of course, it's when the temperatures are nice and the weather's beautiful. So we drive our families nuts by wanting to be inside watching television when we really should be outside partaking in nature and the beautiful weather after hibernating all winter in the freezing cold weather, the snow, at least in the Northeast. But man, great stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit about media. What a surprise. YouTube TV, which I've talked a lot about, is my preferred cable TV replacement. It is an internet-enabled service, and it is tremendous. YouTube is, of course, owned by Google. So YouTube TV takes the cable we've come to know on, our normal cable TV box, and has a subsection of about 70 channels now, and reimagines those channels. It has the traditional guide we're used to, where it just goes from channel 2, 4, 7, 9, 11, all the way down, just in an order that's channel number based. But it reimagines it on a home screen where it tells you the things you want to watch and what you would like to be watching at that moment based on your interests and based on what you watch on the service. Machine learning, algorithms, whatever you want to call it, deliver that to you. And they deliver you the shows in a way that makes you want to add them to your queue. And adding to your queue is a great thing because it's unlimited DVR, up to 9 months, unlimited DVR. So you could be recording 70 concurrent shows, at least I think. You can have 3 concurrent streams, so I could be watching, my wife could be watching on a different device, my son could be watching on a third device at the same time. It's up to your internet speed at that point if it can handle 3 streams, which are at HD. I believe mine can because I have 100 megabits per second on the download. I think you can get 15 to 20, maybe 10 could get you HD. You get into 4K, it could be double that. So I can handle that. And it's just a great service. You can have 6 separate DVRs. So based on my login, I have my own DVR. My wife has her own. I set one up for our family room. And why did I do that? Because I don't want our personalization aspects to be mixed with each other. I want to have my DVR, which is strictly all the shows I watch and want to watch or have the aspiration to watch. Same thing with my wife. I want the shows that are delivered to her, that are recommended to her, to be based on her interests, just like me, just like my son. I don't want to have all the kid shows in my feed. I don't want to have all the cooking shows from my wife in my feed. Nothing against them, but it's in all of our best interests to utilize the technology and to have the personalized content. Why else have the service? So because they're a technology-first company, they can take that content, that traditional cable content, and reimagine it for you in a way that is pertinent to you and is customized to you. It's just a tremendous service. I love it. And since I've been in it, it's been $35 a month. I've had it for over a year. I think I got the trial for the first time around the NBA All-Star Weekend from 2018. And I officially cut the cord, I believe, in June of 2018. I think that's when I cut the cord. I think I cut it April, May, maybe May, but it could have been June. Yeah, I think it was June. Since then, I've just had this as our cable provider, and I've had the internet from our previous triple play provider, which is now just my internet and their Service Electric. So all in, I was paying $127 a month for what would be considered my triple play. We cut out one of the singles in that triple, which was phone, which provided us some savings. We just use our cell phones because how often were you using a house phone? In an emergency, it's easier to reach someone. They're more apt to have their cell phone on them than to be able to reach a home phone. So not sure about the security aspects with having a home phone, how necessary it is, and we've been fine with that. So our cost all in for the internet and cable is $127. Really good deal. Saved us about $50 to $60, maybe $75 a month. So that is significant savings over the year, and for a better product, and for a product that allows you to have the service in more places in your home. Everywhere that you have a streaming device, you can have YouTube TV. Every device you have, from your phone to your tablet to your computer, can access your YouTube TV. When you have cable, really it's the one television you have with a cable box that can get it, because each time you get another box, it's adding to the price. So now it's each of those connections we have in my home now, where it's infinite. I mean, once you buy the little device, or you have it, or you have the internet enabled aspect on whatever television or device you do have, once you have that, you can just have the stream on that device. So it means you're able to watch and utilize more of your cable content than you were before. Now, Service Electric had a couple of channels which I don't have on YouTube TV, which I do miss at times. One of those is WPIX, which is the local CW, the channel 11 in the New York area. Why do I want channel 11? Because the New York Mets play, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 games a year out of the 160 or 162 on that channel. And on those days, it's meaningful enough you aren't able to see the Mets because it's not in YouTube TV yet. When I was up in Saratoga last Memorial Day, I opened my YouTube TV and it went to the local affiliates in the Saratoga area, and CW11 was done or was available on that. So I heard, because of the deals, whether it's Sinclair Networks or whatever, that potentially, eventually, CW11 WPIX will be on YouTube TV. So that would be great, but the season is already a couple of weeks in play already, and I don't have that channel yet. You would have thought that the start of the season would have been a good time to get that in. They do have CW content on demand, but that doesn't help for watching live baseball. SNY came to YouTube TV right at the start of last baseball season in 2018, so that was a huge reason in allowing me to cut the cord, because I did need that. I do want to watch the Mets. That's a lot of games in a season that your team is on and you want to watch them. The other channels are MSG, and all the MSG kind of constellation of channels that are available there when you're talking about watching the Knicks, watching the Rangers, watching the Devils, watching the Islanders, and different sporting teams in the New York area after that, but those are prime among them. And those are not available on YouTube TV. I did have that on Service Electric. There are some services that do have MSG now, one of which is called Fubo TV, and another one is DirecTV Now. We know DirecTV Now. They've been around for a while. They're the internet streaming service of the satellite company, DirecTV. And they had a big shakeup in their services in the last couple of months. So anybody who had the service before at a pretty solid price, I think it was $35 first, then went to $40, then went to $45 as the lowest level, all the way up to, I don't know, $80, $90 at the highest level. And at that point, you're paying for basically cable, and you have to decide in your mind whether it's worth paying that much for something that's internet enabled, which means you have to up your internet speed in order to utilize it. So DirecTV now had a big shift in the last couple months where they pared down a lot of the channels and they forced HBO onto everybody's service, which is not a bad thing, especially with Game of Thrones beginning last night. And they forced it onto your service. In the past, you could add it for $5 because DirecTV is owned by AT&T, which owns HBO now. So they were giving you kind of a sweetheart exclusive deal because they own it already and they want to get more users using HBO. They want HBO to be more like Netflix, and the only way to be more like Netflix is to get a lot more people watching and a lot more people using the service, minutes spent, yada, yada, yada. I've talked about this in the past. So they've changed. And the problem with these services is cable's annoying because it gets expensive. But if cable gives you an introductory rate, the fine print at the least tells you what the rate will be when that introductory rate is over. When you're talking about internet enabled, it's sort of the Wild West. It's a new kind of frontier, and the content is streaming, and it's great, but they can just change it on a month's notice. And so that's what happened with DirecTV Now, which drove a lot of people who had that service nuts, and it's forced them to jump to other services. YouTube TV was one that benefited from that. But last month, YouTube TV, or actually it was last week, announced that they're moving to $50 a month, or $49.99 to be exact. They want it to sound a little less. And that's a jump of $10 for those who came in at $40. For me, it's a $15 jump because I was grandfathered in at $35 a month. And so that's a bit hard to take. That is a big jump. I think, what is 42% or something? That's a big jump. Now, is it a big enough jump to drop it and go to another service? That's what you have to look for yourself. And I did do a lot of that. Now, why did they jump the price? Because you've heard it said, if you follow this industry, that YouTube TV was paying $50 for every single consumer to use the service based on what they have to pay the networks in their, in their service. And so they were subsidizing every single one of their subscriptions. So I was paying $35. They were paying $15, or they were losing $15 on me and everybody else who was grandfathered. Even those who moved up to $40, they were losing $10. Now, Google has more money than God, but that doesn't mean that they want to pay for a service that's losing that much money. It's hard quarter by quarter when you have to sing for your supper, and that's your only, that's the only product under your guise when you're in charge of it. It's hard to say, let's continue to subsidize losses. Companies that make a lot of money don't want to do that unless it's leading to profits at some point, or ubiquity. And while they have over 1 million users, ubiquity's got to be 10, 20, 50, 100 million users. Because at that point you can start driving down the prices of the channels as opposed to forcing consumers to pay more. You can drive down more, you can drive the channels down because now you have bargaining power because you have so many users in your service, and you can take the power and the leverage that all of those users mean back to the networks, who often are in control of 3 to 8 different channels. The networks kind of block together different channels under their under their main umbrella. You can go back and you can negotiate down because now you have all the users, and you'll say, well, we can negotiate down, or we could cut you from our service, and now your service doesn't have access to our users. It's a real dual standoff type of thing. But it's not happening quick enough, and quarters go by, months go by, and they're just losing money out. So they bumped it up to 50 to cover their costs, and then they brought in a bunch of networks like the Discovery networks, which have Food Network, and it has Discovery Channel, ID, HDTV, a bunch of channels which I really have never been one to watch. I wasn't missing them. So the price jumped, and I got a bunch of channels that I'm not really looking for. Now, if they were to say to me, we're going to get NFL Network, we're going to get the MSGs, and we're going to get WPIX, I'd say, okay, the $50 is a little easier to stomach, a little easier to digest. But without it, I'm just paying $50 now for the same service I had. And it's difficult for me because I'm saying to myself, my $50 is covering my costs. So should Google have to subsidize me at $35 even though they're paying $50 for me? It's hard. Ethically, it's a difficult thing. And at some point, somebody's got to pay the piper, and it's usually going to be the consumer. It's not going to be the company themselves. So that's where the conundrum came into play. So I started looking at a lot of options. Again, it drove me, and it drove a lot of people from what you read in the Reddit threads or in the media, in the Twitter sphere, drove a lot of people to look elsewhere. And the one thing I came to, even with this $50 a month hit now, gaining $15 on me, it's not worth it to jump. The only service that's kind of comparable is PlayStation Vue. That's $50 a month. It has the majority of the same channels, and it has NFL Network. Does not have CW, does not have, or live WPIX CW, does not have MSG. But the addition of the NFL Network to the mix makes it an interesting product. Now, I can kind of authenticate into an NFL Network if I use my parents' home cable network, but I don't like that because then you don't know what's on at any time. The great thing about YouTube TV and services that are similar are that you jump in, you log into that system, and now all of the channels are available to you and coming into your view. So I can watch NFL Network, but it's not in the algorithm of YouTube TV telling me what to watch or what show is on. So it's good to have all the channels in there. Same thing with Showtime, HBO. Now, HBO is not on YouTube TV. Showtime is, and it's only $7 a month, which is markedly cheaper than what you can get it on a lot of the other services. And the cool thing with that is now Showtime shows and movies are in that whole YouTube TV network that you log into. I still did drop it because I can just get it from my parents' login, and I figure if they're not using that login, someone should use it, so I'll use it. So I get HBO, I get Showtime, I get Stars. I get a lot of channels that you might have to pay out a lot of money for. That, hey, while it's not in YouTube TV, I can get it elsewhere, and it's worth the savings that I'm getting or accruing by not signing up for it. It would be great if YouTube TV would allow you to authenticate outside purchased channels into the service, like HBO Go, HBO Now, Showtime, Anytime, Stars. If you could authenticate those in so that they're in that kind of ecosystem of content, that would be tremendous. But can't have everything, right? That's what Apple's kind of trying to do with their Apple TV app, which will come out next month. And it's going to be interesting to see what the true pricing is on HBO, Showtime, Stars there. Because if HBO is markedly cheaper, it sounds like it might be $10, which is a good deal. But if it were ever cheaper than that, or if you mixed it up with those other two channels, if it was cheaper as a package deal, that would be something that might be worth looking at. But now that I'm paying $50 a month for YouTube TV, it's tough. And so what I really wanted to do was look at what would happen if I went back to my cable provider, my only cable provider that I can go to, which is Service Electric, which kind of has a monopoly on my area and the Lehigh Valley. It would be great if I could get Fios or Optimum or Spectrum, if those were, not if I could get them, but if I had them in the competitive mix to look. It would be interesting because some of those services are really forward and they're doing a lot for consumers. My Service Electric doesn't have to do that because it's got a monopoly on the area. It's sort of mom and pop-ish, even though it kind of invented cable. Trust me, go look at their website. It's weird, but they sort of did, including how to wire up all the houses and get HBO was the first place it went with Service Electric, apparently. Yeah, they like invented it and then they lost their whole lead on it. But I looked at going back because I was like, boy, now at $50 a month, if I add the 100 megabit per second internet I get, which is 93, now you're looking at 143 a month, and you're looking at a $50 hit going on your credit card at once, which just doesn't feel as palatable as a $35 hit. I don't know why. There's psychology involved, but it feels like a lot more for a $50 chunk to just be taken as a subscription from your credit card on a monthly basis. Just feels like a lot. So I wanted to look back again, and I'll tell you what. The issue is if you were to look to go back to cable, you think, well, now I don't need high-level internet because I'm not, my cable isn't coming from streaming. It's going to be coming from cable itself. So it's going to be cheaper because you might want to bring your internet down. But there's a psychological hit to that too. I don't want to bring my internet down when I've had a fast internet this whole time. It's kind of tough to figure. But if I kept the internet speed I have right now, 100 megabits per second, and had triple play through Service Electric, so added back the phone, added back the cable, the expanded cable, which has a lot of the channels I need, that I've discussed I need, and has a lot of the channels I already like having from YouTube TV, it would be 180. So you're going 180 versus 143. That's a marketable difference. That's $37 in difference. That's almost the price of what YouTube TV was. It's a little more than that. But that's only to have the triple play. The minute you want to get the DVR HD, or if you want to just get an HD set-top box so you can get HD content, that's like $11. But if you want to get a DVR attached to it, which why not? Because otherwise, what's the point? You're not even able to record anything, when on YouTube TV I can record everything. That's another $15. So now you're really looking at the true price being $195. Now, what about if you want to have the box in other rooms in your house? That's now $11 if you're not going to do the DVR. It's $11 for each one of the HD boxes. So we're talking basement at least and master bedroom, because those are places where we can watch our cable, right? Our YouTube TV. We can watch it in those places. You're now looking at a price of around $217. Forget the little taxes here, the little cable card there. Might be $220. That's a big number. I think it was actually $228, to be honest, when I was paying it at the very end before I switched it off and went right over to YouTube TV. That's a big number. That's still a market savings. And I have many more devices in play with YouTube TV. Case in point, and I say this with Adam, I was watching the Masters. I wanted to see every hole of Tiger Woods' day on the march to winning his fifth green jacket, first in 14 years, his first major in over a decade. I wanted to see it. I love watching Tiger. And so the only way to watch it, I could watch some of it on my Apple TV through the YouTube TV app. Then my son needed to watch his shows. And so I moved it to my iPad Pro, and I was watching it there. And then I needed to go outside to play with him in the nice weather. I mean, not had to, I wanted to. And I moved it to my cell phone, which was still on my Wi-Fi network out there. And I was able to see every single hole and all of the recap and all of the celebrations at the end, going device to device to device, picking up where I left off. I couldn't do that with cable. I could only watch it on the one device. I would have to authenticate into different channels and apps based on my Service Electric login credentials. And it's just disjointed, and for a lot more money. And yes, I get WPIX, and yes, I get NFL Network. I don't get NBA TV, which I do on YouTube TV. That always drove me nuts about Service Electric. I like having NBA TV. That's my favorite sport. So it's good to have the flagship network. And I couldn't go, it just would be kind of a mess. And I could really only have the one device, the one cable box in my house, and then you're authenticating otherwise. Now, the other piece that's great is because I have this service and it can live on my different devices, I'm now able to bring my cable TV with me to work, on vacation. I'm able to get a lot more use of the service in different places, in different ways. As I said, when I was on vacation last year, I was watching it on my device when I was in Saratoga Springs. And the cool thing is, it changes the geographic location. So your local channels change, the availability of channels change. So it can almost be like a little surprise when you go. So all said, and look, if the prices are going to continue to go up, you got to start thinking about it. But there's probably headroom to where if they even got up to $80, $90, it's probably still worth it over my cable options at least. Now, they got to add some networks. There would have to be some things in there that would be implicit, like you'd have to get it Showtime. They got to find a way to get HBO authenticated into this. Not authenticated in the service, that is. And they got to get some of those other channels that I'm really looking for as a consumer. Now, I was looking at it. If I were to drop my internet speed down to 40 megabits per second, which is just like a basic performance, it's still a good number. You could still stream Netflix well, Amazon Prime. You could get up to 4K on maybe a device and a half. It's 152 for triple play. That's a lot better, but that's 152 without even getting to the whole set-top boxes that you need and all that. So even without those, it's still $9 more. And then at 40 megabits per second, somehow, if I were to not get triple play and just get double play of internet and television, it's 175. And that's, again, without the other add-ons you need to get, which I don't need to get now. I have unlimited DVR for 9 months, and I have devices all over my house. So every TV is now cable ready, YouTube TV cable ready. So yeah, it's a tough thing to go through, but you still come back on the cost-benefit analysis that YouTube TV is the service to use. PlayStation Vue is now in play. There is another PlayStation Vue option. I think it could get upwards of $70 or $90 though, where HBO is included, like Showtime I think is included, maybe Cinemax. There's a lot of channels included. DirecTV Now also has an option that goes up to $70, and that's where you get all your regional sports networks involved. So you can get MSG, you can get SNY, you get Yes. I don't think I saw NBA TV anymore though. It's like it's a hard game. It's like Jenga. You pull one thing and the whole thing comes undone, and it's a game of trying to figure out how you can get the service you want against what you'll lose by jumping to the new place. And it's not just channels, it's service too. The YouTube TV UI user interface is absolutely perfect and beautiful, and it's future facing for cable. So let's jump into the conversation I have with Adam Dvorin now. I'll talk to you soon. Here with my good friend and work compatriot, Adam Dvorin. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So, Adam, it's been a long time since we've done a podcast that's appeared on my feed. There's been some work ones, but we were doing something here for the company, so I thought let's turn it on and let it rip. Did you watch Tiger yesterday?
I didn't watch Tiger, but obviously, what a story.
Yeah.
I mean, this is his first Grand Slam in
like 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
And first Masters in 14, the longest break between, which is amazing that he's still only 43, even though it's kind of old in golf, but it doesn't feel old to Tiger. And he looked like the old Tiger, except when he took his hat off at the end there. He looked a little older.
Well, and what's funny is, golf is one of those sports that doesn't always get the audience. But I feel like yesterday, as the day went on, it started at 9 a.m. in the morning. And then as the day went on and the drama was building, people were posting about, oh my God, Tiger's really going to do this. Can you believe Tiger's going to do this? And I actually think I'd be very interested to see, did viewership kind of
It must have, and it started so early too because of the impending storm, which was very strange for it to start at 9 a.m. It almost felt like you were watching the British Open or something.
That's right.
So at what point were you aware that he was in the hunt?
Oh, early.
Right away to start the day?
Exactly.
And were you interested in following it?
But online, right? I'm not a golf fan, so, I'm more
Even with him?
Huh?
Even with him?
No, not really. Like baseball, NBA, so, and then, and actually, to kind of out myself as sort of a nerdy wonk, Saturday was also college football spring game season.
I saw that all over my YouTube TV.
Right. So I was pretty interested in, different battles. I attended Temple University's spring practice.
Did you really?
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
What other games were you watching?
So, and then, Penn State, Alabama. So, you want to see, and mostly it's for ceremony. It's Ohio State. I forgot
Alabama was big. I saw Alabama on TV.
I forgot this was Ohio State's first spring game without Urban Meyer so
True.
Ryan Day's the head coach, which is, we'll see how he did well last year in his temporary stint, but now to be the full-time head coach after never having been a head coach before, it reminded me that storyline is going to be a very, very interesting one.
Have you always watched the spring game thing? Have you always been so into it?
Well, I'm always, I've always watched Temples, and then, then the other ones. I feel like TV has gotten better and social media has gotten better. These have become bigger events. Yeah. And, where it was first, it's almost like minor league baseball in the sense that they were almost mythical things that, only a few people got to see them, that they didn't get much coverage, that you might have heard a sprinkling here and there, and then that would be enough to kind of intrigue you through the off season. But you didn't actually have ever seen these people. This guy had a great spring game. This guy looked good in practice, but wait till he gets in fall practice. And now it's everything's out there.
Do you think that's because of the proliferation of streaming and needing to fill gaps in programming?
Yes, and I think also universities became their own programming, their own content producers. Yeah. I hate to keep maybe I'll get a royalty from Temple if I keep bringing them up. But I mean, they've got a full-time now like 4 or 5 full-time videographers.
And that's Temple.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not even the Longhorns who have their own network, or
Right.
the SEC network, or Alabama, or I mean, I know I have YouTube TV, which just went up to $50 a month, which is a little annoying.
Yeah.
But then I did all the math; it's still not. It's still way worth it, especially with the amount it allows me to watch television on mobile. That's a huge deal for me. I can bring my TV with me everywhere.
Yeah.
There are some things I miss, but for the price, it still nets out a lot better in this. But the interface is so good. So I never noticed this level. I've always heard of spring games, and I've always heard it's something people do watch, or maybe it was sort of a small fringe pastime at some point. But now it's become front and center because they need to fill programming, and they have programming in all of these networks now. So I saw across the board on my YouTube TV, just in the nice thing, it was like Alabama spring game, Ohio State spring game, like every spring game, because you have the Big Ten network, you have the SEC network, you have ACC network, everything. So I guess there's a spring game everywhere. So let's fire up the cameras and watch.
Well, and then it also becomes an excuse to reconvene your tailgate group. So
oh really?
Yeah. So I mean that. It becomes sort of the ceremonial, like, hey, we're going to do kind of an off-season tailgate, and we're going to get together, and so it also becomes a big Instagram event too. You can go and look, you can queue up, Beaver Stadium on Instagram, and you can see like, these are the people who are there. They bring back old players, so you get nostalgic. You can see.
And nothing can go wrong. You can't get upset.
No, it doesn't count.
It's like the greatest thing, and it's nice weather, so you know you're going to have a good tailgate. Well, that's interesting.
No one's really getting hurt.
Well, you hope, yeah. Is it more like flag, or do they actually tackle?
Right, exactly. Like Temple's was a glorified scrimmage. They didn't even do. They didn't even make it a game. They just, new coach, our third coach in a year, because the second one lasted 18 days. Manny Diaz.
Where did he go?
They hired him from University of Miami, and then Mark Richt retired, and he went back to University of Miami. So he.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
So Jeff Collins was the original coach, and he left to go to Georgia Tech, which is kind of where he's from. He didn't go there, but he's from Atlanta. So.
And before that was Matt Rule, right?
Right, who's at Baylor and still at Baylor.
And how did he almost became a head coach in the NFL?
Almost became a head coach of the Jets.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you ever sit there and go, how does that work? They were successful,
right?
But it's not like he's gone and put the world on fire at Baylor.
No,
but I guess it's networks,
game.
Right? I mean, whose tree is he under? Is it the Parcells tree, kind of, all the way down the line, or is he a backer, or who was he from? Because he was on like the Jets staff, wasn't he?
He was on the Giants staff.
The Giants staff. So
he worked 1 year under Tom Coughlin.
Tom Coughlin, okay.
And then, but that was between coaches. So he was at Temple, and then he kind of got phased out by the coach. So Al Golden brought him in. He got phased out by Steve Adazio, who's now at Boston College, and had Ryan Day under him. So Ryan Day was also at Temple, and then when Matt left, he was losing he kept getting inferior positions under Steve Adazio. So he left, went to spend a year in the NFL, and then Adazio left to go to Boston College, and Temple brought him back as the head coach.
Is it just because I know you, or does it seem like Temple seems to be a pretty good launching pad for big jobs?
Oh, it is a good launching pad now, yeah. And
why is that? Because of the city, and it's a good enough school?
Yeah, and I think the whole American Athletic Conference, like it's interesting following a conference like that, because it is now a training ground in basketball and football. For like Matt Cronin, for instance, just left Cincinnati in basketball to go to UCLA, and then there are coaches all over the Power Five right now who had gotten their start in the MAC. Like I'm trying to remember the name of the coach that left Memphis, for instance, to go to
Fuentes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Justin Fuentes. He went to Virginia Tech,
right?
Yeah, and Scott Frost left UCF to go to Nebraska.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
not sure he should have done that, but we'll see. It could take some time.
Yeah, so you see like lots of examples of that, and now you're starting to see it in basketball. So, it is like you can it's crazy that the delineation of salaries is so great between Power 5 and non-Power 5, where it just is no brainer to take the Power 5 job. But
now, someone who follows media both for your job and just your passion, you like love media. I see you tweeting at the morning show hosts of like local things with kind of goofy things to get picked up. I hope you're trying to get picked up.
I got on Philadelphia Magazine today. I was walking the dog, took a picture. We had a tornado warning at 3:30 in the morning in Philadelphia, and so saw a tree fall across a small side street. Yeah. Shot it, tweeted it to the CBS affiliate. They retweeted it, and then I got on Philadelphia Magazine where they were kind of doing a roundup of how people reacted. So, do
you get big follower jumps when those happen, or not so much?
No, not really.
A lot of interaction. Do you go and look at the tweet analytics? See how many impressions you got?
Exactly. But I am doing it to, I'm purposely doing it to see
how far it can go.
I'm kind of like
you get caught up in the storm.
I'm sort of surfing, right? I'm trying to see all right,
newsjacking.
Yeah. Can I jump a wave and ride the wave a little bit? The most I ever got was it was before a Philadelphia Eagles playoff game, and they had Les Bowen had done a feature on a defensive back who was a free agent pickup, but he had been incarcerated, and he had a really, really sketchy background. And then he, escaped all these things and became a starting NFL defensive back who was going to be in a playoff game. So I posted the story and I said, what a great story about Les Bowen on, this inspirational guy. And Eagles Twitter, all day, I could just see my thing.
You know what the funniest one for me was? I was watching SportsCenter one morning, and I saw a highlight where Karl Anthony Towns, who is on the Minnesota Timberwolves, but he's from New Jersey, he was walking in to the pregame on the SportsCenter thing because I guess he was going to have a good game. I saw he was wearing a Devil shirt. I took a picture of him on the TV, and I tweeted it. Oh, Karl Anthony Towns with the Devil shirt. Devil's Twitter, which picked it up to such a degree. I've never had a tweet of such success just from watching SportsCenter and I didn't think it was going to even really take off.
Wow.
But it just gets picked up and it's like a maelstrom. Now, the one thing I wanted to say though was yesterday, Sunday, the day Tiger won, and then all through the day, was that not one of the greatest television watching days in the history of the world?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, from Tiger, the thing starting at 9, into the basketball playoffs continuing. It was day 2, but it was day 1 for several of the series. For me, the Mets were on Sunday Night Baseball, into Game of Thrones and Barry and Billion. That had to be one of the all-time days where we have to bow before this thing that is called the television.
Oh, definitely. And especially you could see it was a good way of seeing the new way that we watch TV, which is streaming and desktop and set top, and you could see and then how it's become, how Twitter really becomes what it was originally supposed to be in instances like this, which is just that community of people sharing ideas and one-upping each other and trying to come up with an observation or a joke. And I remember hearing a Bill Simmons where the CEO of Twitter was on it. And I'm friendly with the corporate communications person from Twitter, so I listened as a Brian Polikoff shout out.
Because you are a power user.
So I wanted to, listen a little bit. I really didn't know that much about the CEO of Twitter, but it's funny how Twitter's become this sort of synonymous with the president and hate and hot takes and communities shouting down other communities, but then Game of Thrones brings it back to where it was supposed to be, which is
when there's something real, there's enough commentary around the real thing that it drowns out the stuff that's more kind of snarky or not as intelligent, or not intelligent, but just mean-spirited. It was an all-time day, and it's hard having 2 kids because you're just trying to – thank you, YouTube TV, though. That's where you go, I don't have to be in front of a television all day. I can move from my tablet. I can move to my cell phone in Wi-Fi shouting range in the backyard while he's on he was telling me to put it down. I can't fix that part. But I was able to see every hole of Tiger's day yesterday, thanks to YouTube TV, on my TV, on my tablet, on my phone. And it was just, you had that moment where you're like, I can't believe a medium can do this, where you're this happy about the day, because of the amount of things. You're not a Game of Thrones guy, are you?
No. So I've never seen Game of Thrones. But that said, I'm like interested enough. The guy that plays Jon Snow hosted Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago, and single-handedly could have been one of the better Saturday Night Live guest hosts. So I was like, you know what? The guy's a good actor, because that's a tough spot. And now I'm like, maybe I should watch this. And
it is the best. I've always felt Masters, baseball, then you have the basketball playoffs, and then to have some of these premieres happening at this point, unbelievable. And sometimes it happens on Easter. That said, both of our teams are now in the playoffs in basketball, playing each other. The Nets took game one.
And by the way, you mentioned baseball. How good is ESPN's broadcast team now? Where they're alternately making really good observations during the game, or I was telling somebody else telling Brian about this. A-Rod alternates between really, really good point and sort of absurdism.
Clown.
Yeah, and it's great.
It's very A-Rod too. That's how he is.
Mm-hmm. And but it keeps you going from inning to inning, and you're like, all right, what's this guy going to say next?
Yeah.
And you never know what's going to come next. He's become must-watch TV if you're a baseball fan.
It's pretty funny in a weird way.
But yeah, I'm ready for game one of the Sixers series.
You mean game one? You mean after the fake one? So we'll have nothing to know on what goes on tonight. But what is the and knowing Philadelphia, it's not like game two's result is going to change the general feeling in the city. Do they like this team, or are they did they like it last year and then the management changed it around enough to where it's sort of unlikable and mercenary-ish?
We don't. They're still beloved.
Wow, beloved. Even with what Ben Simmons had to say about them? Don't boo?
Yeah, and it's even to the point where when I've been to a couple games this year, and I keep remarking that it's not a Philadelphia team. It's almost like you see almost like you see an expansion team where they've never had a team before. Remember, the Sixers were a losing franchise, were just moribund for
Nets too. Yeah. Really, if you think about it, they were covered up by the Sixers being so bad because the Nets followed that up with their own pretty terrible position they put themselves in.
Yeah, and it was seemingly overnight this fan base emerged, and they were not people who were previously fans. And so you go to Wells Fargo Center now, and there's jerseys. They changed the team colors. There's, a whole new game presentation. And it really seems like they started the franchise 3 years ago.
That's weird.
And so they're still in a honeymoon period. People still love Joel Embiid. They, acknowledge Ben Simmons as a great player. They don't really take his diss or embrace very seriously because they kind of feel that Joel loves them. And
what did you feel about the booing? Did you feel that it was too quick or warranted? It's hard to say to a Philadelphia person, but
no. They played awful on Saturday, and Brooklyn was just right place, right time.
Brooklyn played how you wish they would have played, right?
Right, exactly. And they played the kind of game that you would hope that your favorite NBA team played, where it was just multiple players stepping up big in key situations, withstanding runs. And persisting, and no one player, taking the game over. It was more of a system. I remember at one point I was texting a friend of mine and being like, who wasn't able to watch the game, and I was like, yeah, well, Sixers are, they just said the Sixers are 3 for 11 on 3-pointers, and New Jersey, I still call them New Jersey
Please
Nets.
do. I'm okay with that. I was wearing my New Jersey shirt the other day. I hate that we don't have. I hate that we lost that.
Yeah, the Nets are still the Nets were 60 or 70% the 3-pointer, and So
and that was with D'Angelo Russell not being very good in the first half.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So it was lucky. It was lucky for the Sixers that it was just in the middle of the afternoon on a gorgeous spring day.
I know.
If they are, I bet a lot of people didn't really watch the game live. A lot of people are like, well, this is going to be a team that's going to make a deep run. So first, it's almost in that realm that the first round doesn't matter as much to the –
like what Milwaukee did.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, now granted, the Pistons didn't have Blake Griffin and they were just they're the Pistons. But I mean, that was a weird day though because the Nets win and then like every other team who's on the road wins.
Yeah.
Except I can't think of Golden State, of course. Except they don't. Yeah. But it was funny because it was like Orlando rolls into Toronto and wins, which is a rite of spring as well for Toronto to lose game one and have a bad game from Kyle Lowry, Philly guy. But did people in Philadelphia, are they being honest with themselves about this group of players, like, or do they truly believe they can get to the finals, or do they understand that the flaws haven't quite been fixed, and are they okay with that?
No. There's a lot of nervousness with people who really understand the game. There's a lot of nervousness. There's a lot of questioning, like, why did you have to make two major moves in midseason? Was that one major move too many? And that now you're in the playoffs. You've got this group of players that hasn't played together that long.
10 games, I think it was, that they actually played together.
Yeah, and you can tell. You can tell that it's, not cohesive. And
in the best scenario, though, I often think, would they be cohesive if they had a training camp? And I think it's got to be based around Ben Simmons leading the team, almost playing the point. But the problem is, it's not like the other guys, because he would really be great. Like they've built teams around LeBron lately, where you just have shooters everywhere. They have scorers, but not shooters. So it's just kind of an interesting mix that you just keep hoping it goes well, right? And then you're just kind of waiting till one of the shoes to drop. There's like 5 shoes that can drop.
Exactly.
I mean, there always are. But the last thing I wanted to ask, because we got a little bit of time here, not much, but how's Bryce Harper going with the Phillies?
Well, it was funny. I went to look in the paper today because the Phillies are starting a 3-game series against the Mets, and they're 9-5 coming into today.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Which you would have thought the way they started the season that they would be better. And then the Mets, who everybody discounted, also 9-5 or 9-6.
Yeah, they might be 6 now. I think they lost after the loss. Then DeGrom with 2 subpar starts, which always happens in baseball too. Like he had continued his dominance into the season, and baseball always evens you out. It is the truest life-like sport there is. So you kind of run into it. And it's such a long season that I always love when you get to August, September, and you go, wait, there was a series in April where the Mets were swept by the Phillies. Right. It feels like a different place. And it's sort of like you have to accept it. You can be hurt by it, but move on to the next day. That's always the hard part with baseball. But do you take his quote-unquote love of the fan base at face value, or does it feel like almost a wrestling heel kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. It's totally contrived. It's like I woke up and now I love you, and somehow Philadelphia is eating it up. Like they went to the game in Washington.
Because they are like wrestling.
Right. And I think there is the sense of, I think Philadelphia has this inferiority complex where,
they want to be loved.
They just want somebody to say they love them.
And they'll boo you if you burn them.
Right. And I was kind of dubious on Bryce Harper to begin with, and I thought he was one move too many. The contract was too long. The hype was too big. They're still a team that doesn't have a bullpen. They still have a thin starting rotation. They're almost succeeding in spite of themselves. I thought their best move was the one they made about a month earlier, which was when they traded for JT Realmuto. Yeah. Which gives them both offensive weapon at catcher and then also a superior game caller at catcher.
What do you feel like watching him? I almost imagine it must feel like how I felt when Carlos Beltran came to the Mets, where it was like, wait a sec, he's coming to the Mets because they made the best deal. It's not like he's dying to be a Met. And he came and he only hit like 16 home runs the first year, and it took a while to kind of wrap your arms around him. And he's not like Harper in temperament or personality. But do you almost find yourself going like, oh my God, Bryce Harper's on our team every time he comes up?
Yeah, well, and it's funny too. I forget, like to me, he's just another ball player. But then, like, I've got a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, or 10-year-old daughters.
Marketing.
And so they are, like, they're talking about Bryce Harper in school, and they're wearing,
That's
like,
funny.
their friends are wearing Bryce Harper stuff. My daughter, my 9-year-old, put pause on her Chromebook the other day, and she said, "Dad, I want you to see this. I never knew he was so feisty." And I'm like, hit play, and it was Harper in 2 bench clearing brawls. Like it was nothing but a highlight reel of baseball bench clearing brawls, and the first 2 were Bryce Harper. So immediately she's like, "Oh, it's Bryce Harper. My dad wants to see this. He's
Do we truly know why he came here still?
I mean, I think it was no one else was going to give him that much money in that many years.
They came so close, though. It's funny for his mind to want, and it's nothing against Philadelphia. Yeah. There's very few places where I would go. He wanted that 13 years too. Yeah. That was the key. It was like the years. I think someone went 12, but or maybe he wanted the 13, which helped him get to the biggest number on a contract. That was really the only way you could do that.
He wanted more money than Manny Machado. So,
then. But it's funny that they just do that. But like I always say with baseball, it's beautiful everywhere because it's summertime. Yeah. The cities are kind of cleared out. It's even playing for the Yankees. It's not like playing for New York because you're a lot of them live in Connecticut. They just come down, or Fort Lee. Like it's not really being in the city, and the city's quiet in the summer anyway. So it's actually not a very bad existence anywhere. It's not like basketball where everybody wants to play kind of in warm weather or with the best facilities. But yeah, it's just weird that it was so weird when he went there. Do you really like when you watch him, is there anything about him early on where you go, "Oh man, I had no idea that part of him," like the way he hits or the little things he does? Or I mean, it seemed like he actually is constantly, I forget, Mattingly was like this, where he's constantly changing his like swing and his setup and all that. I mean, is that something? Yeah,
and what got me was I didn't think he was that theatrical either, like where he's playing to the crowd and he's becoming, so in that way I think that he is going to be a fan favorite because he's always going to go to right field, salute.
It's like a politician doing it almost.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to be here for 13 years now. I got to get the Curry here. I got to Curry some favor because there will be down periods. And the other great thing is the ballpark. He could hit 1 million home runs there.
Right. And Philadelphia's a good city for somebody like him because it's big enough for him to be a major star, but small enough for him to, like go downtown and, like go to a restaurant and, or take his family somewhere and not get overwhelmed and not be like the Beatles coming to America or something.
Well, it's funny. You wouldn't be surprised if someone told you Bryce Harper's from Philadelphia too, right?
Right.
His personality is like, I'm ready to fight with the hair. You almost see him in Wildwood or something.
Exactly.
Whereas Mike Trout, you would never think is really from. He's so subdued and quiet. You would think he's the quiet Las Vegas kid.
Right.
So it's kind of funny like that.
And I mean, Trout is at every Philadelphia Eagles home game, like just sitting.
That's true.
Unless the Angels are playing, but
do people consider Millville Philadelphia?
No, but he gets the Philadelphia currency because he's at the Eagles games.
Right.
Like that literally.
But they've always said that about him, that he's sort of a Philly guy. It's just, I guess it's just that. But
I mean, it's like he's at the Eagles games. Bradley Cooper comes to Eagles games.
It's kind of like the McConaughey at Texas, which is awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
One word, lastly, Foles to the Jaguars. What do people in Philly think? Perfect mix. Just get him, let him go somewhere, get his money. We really rode him as hard as we possibly could before he starts to kind of turn the other way, and it's time to give Carson Wentz the opportunity on his own. Well,
we'll see. I mean, we haven't. It was just sort of an understood that he was going.
Yeah.
So no one, but before there was really the call that, oh, look how much better they are with Nick Foles than Carson Wentz. They should trade Carson Wentz. They should keep Nick Foles, and which would have been just silly. I mean,
it would have burned. Oh God, it would have burned you, because that's when Nick Foles was great almost because he was playing with a safety net in a way that he wasn't expected to do. It's sort of like with the Mets last year. They were so bad, especially in the second half, and you go, oh, Jacob deGrom had like a 1 ERA. Zach Wheeler had like a 1.7, and that's because no one was watching. Now, DeGrom's great, but I mean, you start sliding into a season with some expectations. He started off great and he's sort of fallen off, but you wonder with Foles, it's almost like let that bomb blow up at the Jaguars with all the expectations on him.
Yeah.
He could be really good, but if he does exactly what he did with Philly, there was a magical playoff element to it where in a regular season, you don't know.
Yeah, and you feel like you can always get Nick Foles back. Like he's a year or two
That's
away
true.
from being your backup quarterback again.
Right.
I mean, he's still fairly young.
30, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
So
I think he's only 30, 31.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like he's been around forever, but he really hasn't. So he could play another 7-8 more years, especially, if he's that backup, I'm going to be an occasional starter. I can, you can ride a 3 to 5 game wave with him and that's a great way to be. I mean,
Bradford's done it and he hasn't done anything.
Right.
Right. So it's kind of interesting.
Right, exactly. What if here at Winning Strategies, I could, work like 2 weeks a year, and I could be amazing that 2 weeks a year, and then just.
Isn't that what you do anyway? No, I'm just kidding. All right, Adam, that was good. We'll talk later.
All right, sounds good. Oh, shoot.